Welcome back to New Rockstars. I'm Erik Voss, and the live-action Spiderverse has gone from an open-ended, grape-flavored window of opportunity after Spider-Man No Way Home to a befuddling, blood-flavored punch in the mouth after Morbius' post-credit scenes. Morbius spoilers ahead, but somehow the logic of No Way Home was distorted so that MCU characters can now be randomly transported in a one-way trip into a separate universe, leaving them with unexplained hostility for Spider-Man. How did this happen? What went wrong? Well, the director of the Morbius film, Daniel Espinosa, who I gotta say is a talented filmmaker who does not deserve the blame for Sony's multiverse meddling here. This guy has bravely opened up about these creative choices, allowing us to diagnose where things might have gone awry and how Sony can really easily fix this broken universe. Morbius was originally scheduled to release in July 2020, and its first trailer, you may remember, released in January 2020, a trailer that referenced Spider-Man in the form of some graffiti and the inclusion of Michael Keaton as Adrian Toomes, Vulture of Spider-Man Homecoming, a story set in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. This Morbius film was intended to release after Spider-Man Far From Home and after Sony's renegotiation of their Spider-Man deal with Disney and Marvel Studios for a third film, which was supposed to come out in July 2021. Morbius was also supposed to release long before the Venom sequel, Venom Let There Be Carnage, and its crazy post-credit scene. In an interview with Insider, Espinosa said that Vulture was never intended to be part of the film's main story, but that the idea to feature Michael Keaton came up before they shot the film, all part of an agenda to show off the Spider-Verse. And I think what many of us now forget, because it happened in the before times, is that at the time of that January 2020 trailer for Morbius, the biggest Marvel title in recent memory was Spider-Man Far From Home, which ended with the post-credit scene that brought back J.K. Simmons as J. Jonah Jameson, a cross-universe cameo that also doesn't make a whole lot of logical sense when you think about it, but the fans still loved it nonetheless, and just assumed that J.K. Simmons could play the same character in different universes. And Sony, from that, likely assumed that we would all have the same thrilled reaction to Michael Keaton. Probably a mistake leaning on Keaton so heavily for the marketing, giving fans a false impression of what this movie would be, instead of leaving Keaton as a surprise, for which our appreciation would outshine our overthinking. But at any rate, the pandemic shut everything down in March 2020, and Morbius got delayed. First to March 2021, then to October 2021, then to January 2022, and then finally to April 2022. And in the midst of all this, Sony, who is always under pressure to release new Spider-Man films about every 2 years to retain their film rights to the character, shuffled up the schedule so that Spider-Man No Way Home would come out in December 2021 before Morbius. So Espinosa said that it was hard to see Morbius, a movie shot from February 2019 and wrapped by June 2019, meaning they started shooting this before Endgame came out. It was hard for him to see this movie mostly locked, now coming out in a world after superhero movie expectations completely shifted. So it sounds like Michael Keaton was intended to be a post-credit scene cameo who meets Morbius, which is why in earlier trailers the two cross paths.
You and I should stay in touch.
But after the movie got delayed to its final April 2022 release date, a decision that was made in early January after No Way Home came out, trailers that were released after that downplayed Toomes' interaction with Morbius and instead showed nude footage of him alone in his prison cell, suggesting that much of this was completely reconfigured after No Way Home came out. And in an interview with Uproxx, Espinosa confirmed that the release of Spider-Man No Way Home totally changed how Sony wanted Toomes' arrival to look like in the Morbius film. He said, when Spider-Man No Way Home came out, Sony said this is how the visual effects are. And then the idea of having him just encountering him in that universe seemed too complicated, and then we put it in the end, we have to match. I don't know how the transportation would look like in that. There were all these small things that had to be addressed, but I think that the concept of having different timelines I believe, came from Sony, not from Kevin Feige. It was Sony that initiated that idea. So in other words, Espinosa wanted to just have Morbius casually encounter Toomes, similar to how Peter Parker casually sees J.K. Simmons as J. Jonah Jameson as someone already existing in that universe. But then, after No Way Home, Sony insisted that this scene use the same purple sky cracks and the same white glowing teleporting as the multiverse crossovers in No Way Home. Problem is, by doing that, Sony really anchored Morbius to the No Way Home multiverse logic, despite honestly, none of us fully understanding that movie's logic still. Fans walked out of it in the weeks after that movie, inferring enough logic that we needed to process the movie, but clearly Sony did not understand their own movie's implications. And by trying to use that complicated logic to explain something that didn't need an explanation, they ultimately implied Adrian Toomes permanently left the MCU and entered a universe where he has no resources and no relationship with Spider-Man, making it completely nonsensical that he would have his same Vulture wings once more and have any feeling feelings whatsoever towards this universe's Spider-Man. Still, there is a silver lining, folks, and that is that this universe that Toomes has just joined still has a chance to be a really awesome universe. The director confirmed that the universe Morbius and Toomes are now in is the same universe as Venom and Carnage, and there is every reason to believe that from Sony's perspective, this is the same universe as the one that they left off with in 2014's The Amazing Spider-Man 2 with Andrew Garfield as Peter Parker and the early makings of the Sinister Six. Because in every interview, Espinosa confirms that there is a Spider-Man, but he jokes that Sony would shoot him if he says anything. Said Sony, haha, seriously, we will. And since Espinosa is totally okay speculating that the animated Miles Morales could make his way into live action, it just sounds to me that his taboo words are Andrew and Garfield. Espinosa even went as far as to say in all the different Marvel timelines, you have a Spider-Man. It's a totem. In the Marvel universe, what you say is that you have to have a Spider-Man in each universe for it to function. He's one of the fundamental beings. He's totally right. Spider-Man is truly the focal character of the multiverse in Marvel lore, the axis character upon which it all hinges. When a new universe is presented, it's usually one centered around a new Spider-Man variant. So I think Sony really has an opportunity to redefine Toomes' transference from the MCU to the Venomverse as a random mistake, redefining it as a crucial plot point, a side effect of Andrew Garfield's return to his home reality at the end of that film. How, as a totem fundamental being, his arachno frequency towed in his wake one character resistant to the memory wipe affecting the rest of the MCU through the nebulous space between realities that also includes Kraven, Rhino, Scorpion, Black Cat, Madam Web, all the rest. All of these characters now respawning in the Venomverse alongside Andrew and Toomes, a universe where Peter Parker is the center of it. And Madam Web defines this multiverse as a spider-centric web of life and destiny, and that everything confusing about those purple cracks was really according to her and her web's design. Because how good is a vulture in a cage having no memory of his captor? Free the bird and give the fatherless Peter a papa. I mean, I don't know. I feel like Dakota Johnson could say something cooler than that. That's just my pitch. I mean, Sony could just claim this as a win and say this universe was always Andrew Garfield's universe, and now this universe is centered around the Peter Parker with the best character arc in one of the biggest films of all time, a broken Peter who began his story bitter and rageful, but ends with his amazingness affirmed. Andrew Garfield worked so well in No Way Home because the story embraced the mistakes his era of the character was most criticized for, and Sony can now do the same thing with Toomes and Morbius. And since Espinosa is betting our lives that Sony plans to bring into the Spider-Verse Miles Morales into live action, and it was Andrew and Electro who speculated about the Black Spider-Man in that scene, I think we all agree that this Peter works best as an older brother and could be an amazing mentor to Miles Morales.
God, this is so cool. I always wanted brothers.
Let me know your thoughts on all this in the comments below. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Erik Voss. Follow New Rockstars. Subscribe to New Rockstars for more analysis of everything you love. Thanks for watching. Bye.